Welcome to Coffee Commerce. My name is Sean Ramit and I'm the grandson of a coffee farmer from Guyana, South America. On Coffee Commerce, we talk about the stories behind coffee as they relate to ideas, culture, and business. And we've been talking about the influence that coffee and coffee houses have played in revolutions. These types of influences and these uprisings and political changes helped to make coffee and coffee houses popular, but it also made them feared mainly by the ruling class at which they were the target. This concern for what was spoken at coffee houses dates back to the beginning of the coffee revolution and the coffee houses, back to the Ottoman Empire. Spies were sent out to record and report back what was being spoken at these coffee houses. It was in these coffee houses in Istanbul and elsewhere in the Ottoman Empire that the news was reported, ideas were exchanged, and feelings about the current political climate was verbalized. The spying network at these coffee houses was quite well organized. The spies would gather intelligence, create journals, report to the police chief, who would in turn summarize the reports and highlight important items and report it up to the Grand Vizier, who would report up to the Sultan to keep him informed of what was being discussed in public. Some of these informants were mingled in the coffeehouse patrons. They were engaged in heated debates in the coffee houses. Some have even said that the actual coffeehouse owners were among the paid spies. It would appear that the main purpose to collect this information was to gather public opinion of the day in relation to the ruling authority, not to indict people criminally. Why coffee houses, you may say? What would the attraction be to the coffee house in the public opinion and even spies? One of the key aspects to understand is that the large portion of the public was either illiterate or would not have been able to afford printed material. There were really no newspapers of the day as such, and so the coffee houses became a network for gathering to hear news and discuss ideas and opinions. Some of these coffee house discussions included an uprising in the empire, rising prices, gossip about political figures, new administrations. Coffee houses were the Ottoman Empire's rumor mill, and some would even say it was a place to hear the language of the common people. Spies and informers were not only in coffee houses, though, in the Ottoman Empire. They were everywhere, including barber shops, religious establishments, hotels, bathhouses. They were even at funerals. But coffee houses were said to have represented about 50% of the intelligence gathered of the day. The revolts in Egypt around the time of the mid-1800s and the rebellion of Mehmet Ali Pasha were a major topic of discussion at coffee houses in Istanbul around that time. The spies from the empire were quite keen to understand the sentiment of the common people. Most people detested the governor for his actions against the empire, but were also equally frustrated at the same time with their own ruling elite, who had seemed to be ineffective against the rebellion, even aligning with strange bedfellows like the Russians. News of the drama in Egypt traveled quickly through the coffee houses in Istanbul. During this time, even public figures like Mustafa would speak out in coffee houses. In particular, it was said that Mustafa indicated that the Ottoman lands will be lost whether they fight or not. The governor Mehmet Ali was hated in the coffee houses around Istanbul. His name alone would change the mood in the coffee house establishments. Coffee houses around the Ottoman Empire were a major news source. They were among the first to learn about the Napoleon ventures in Egypt, as well as his defeats and exit from the Ottoman Empire. Coffee house opinions were very engaging. Some topics were very strategic and even elaborate in their banter. Some suggested that the French were mobilizing troops against the Ottomans. In other discussions, they would say that the French would not fight the British and the Russians over Egypt. The Ottoman-British alliance against Mehmet Ali was seen favorably in the coffee houses. Coffeehouse topics in Istanbul would change frequently and opinion would be swayed, but moods would linger for some time. For example, for some time the mood in Istanbul was that of disgruntled taxpayers. In fact, one of the reasons why the people were disenchanted with Mehmet was because he had done things like block the export of flour from Egypt, which would make them buy expensive dark bread. It was also said that because of the war with Egypt, and that the Sultan printed worthless paper money instead of traditional silver coins. Coffee houses in the Ottoman Empire were very complex structures with dynamics that were volatile, and it could change on a whim. One commonality in coffee houses, though, it was a place for the commoner. This even meant that regardless of your religious affiliation, you were equal in a coffee house. Your opinion mattered as much as anyone else. The Ottoman Empire found the coffee houses as a place to poll their performance with the public. Other nations, and later in the Ottoman Empire, this type of intelligence would be to draw people out for criminal activity rather than just to hear what they had to say. But that's another story for another cup of coffee. Thank you.